Sectum Sempra. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hello, Harry Potter fans, and welcome to my latest Harry Potter movie review, where today I review the 6th movie in the Harry Potter film series, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, directed by David Yates and released in 2009. So, the Half-Blood Prince, we are getting through the Potter Wizarding World Marathon. Only 2 more to go after this. Well, 4 more if you want to include the Fantastic Beasts movies, which we will include, as the new Fantastic Beasts movie is going to be out very soon. But anyway, the Half-Blood Prince, the plot is as follows. As Harry Potter begins his 6th year at Hogwarts, he discovers an old book marked as the property of the Half-Blood Prince, and begins to learn more about Lord Voldemort's dark past. So, the Half-Blood Prince. Now, as I've said before in the previous reviews, there are no bad Harry Potter films. But obviously, if I were to do a ranking of them, some would be better than others. Now, of course, what this is all alluding to is the fact that one of the films in the series has to take the spot as the weakest of the 8, or 10 or 11, if you want to include the new films. But just speaking about the 8 Harry Potter films, the one that I think is the weakest, I'm afraid it's this one. The Half-Blood Prince, this is the Harry Potter film that I've changed my opinion the most about. Now, I do like this film, don't get me wrong. There are no bad Harry Potter films. None of them are terrible. But this one, it's a very mixed bag for me. I don't dislike this movie, but I do feel that this particular installment is the least faithful to its novel. I think the problem with the Half-Blood Prince for me is the fact that while it is a good film and it is entertaining, they focus on the wrong things, or too much of the wrong thing. This movie is very much about Harry and Dumbledore discovering the secrets of the Horcruxes and how Lord Voldemort, rose to power, and how he was able to split his soul into 7 pieces, and they are trying to work together to find the objects, well, to discover what objects they are, and thus they'll be able to take out Lord Voldemort, and it will all build up to the next one, the Deathly Hallows. But what this movie does is it kind of fills in its runtime with a lot of romantic comedy. I understand that obviously they wanted to have a bit more light relief, and that's fine. The characters are aging, they're like 16, 17, so they are going to fall in love. There's no question about that, and I don't mind that stuff. But I did feel that it kind of took over the movie a bit too much. Like, there's a lot of romantic comedy with Ron and Lavender, his new girlfriend. Ron is kind of cocky, he's got a girlfriend, and it's nice to see Ron get more of the spotlight, but I just feel like the comedy kind of goes on too long. And a lot of the film does deal with the romance, like we see Hermione has strong feelings for Ron, and she's struggling to kind of come to terms with that. Harry and Ginny have feelings for each other, and they're struggling to come to terms with that as well. And all of this, while it is interesting, I'm just kind of sitting there going, come on, Yates, it's time to get on with the plot now. Don't get me wrong, this film is good, and I think the inclusion of Jim Broadbent as Slughorn, he is fantastic. He's probably one of the standout performers in the film. He's really good, and I like his story. The fact that the character has so much guilt, weighing on him. He's so worried about his memory being exposed because he doesn't want people to think, to blame him for Voldemort's rise to power. Of course, Slughorn did not know that Voldemort was going to rise to power, but he unintentionally, was manipulated and gave him the secrets to create the Horcruxes, which it's not obviously a nice thing that happened, but obviously it's a necessary piece of information that Dumbledore and Harry need in order to work out, where to go next and taking out Lord Voldemort. So I think it's interesting. I did like the flashbacks and seeing how, Voldemort was in the orphanage when he was a boy, and actually the boy Voldemort was played by Ralph Fiennes' nephew, which is an interesting fact. And I like that scene where he's kind of in the orphanage and he's been causing problems for the other kids, so to speak, with dark magic, and that's when Dumbledore recruits him to come to Hogwarts. And the other memory we see is, of course, when he's slightly older and he's talking to Slughorn about the Horcruxes. In the book, there's so many more memories. The film only shows 2 of the memories that we could have seen. So I think the film made a big mistake by not focusing on that as the primary storyline, and I think that should have been the central focus. The film gives you the bare minimum. It gives you enough to understand the story and understand about the Horcruxes, but I kind of feel like the film kind of was very misguided. It took the wrong direction for me. I think they put too much emphasis on the romantic comedy, and less emphasis on the actual story, which was the Horcruxes. I mean, luckily, once the second half of the film kicks into gear, it does find its feet and it does manage to pick up where it left off with the Horcruxes and continue that plot thread. But because of this, the pace of this film is really slow. I have to be honest and say that this film is too long. It's just too long. It's 2 hours, 33 minutes, and even though some of the Potter films are longer than this one feels the slowest. It just feels like the story doesn't really advance and doesn't go anywhere as quickly as some of the others. And I do think this film could have been at least 15 minutes shorter. And I think they could have cut out some of the romantic comedy and really focused more on the Horcruxes, because that is the thread of the plot. That being said, I did enjoy some of the comedy. I did laugh a few times, and especially Rupert Grint and Emma Watson. They get a lot more to do in this film, which is fantastic. Jessie, who plays Lavender, is also very funny in her sequences. Evanna Lynch, once again, great as Luna. And what this film did also get right was Draco Malfoy. Tom Felton gives his absolute best performance as Draco. I mean, he is fabulous in this film. He has such a journey. He's basically the Harry Potter of the dark side, so to speak. He's basically given the task to be initiated into the Death Eaters. But in order to do so, he has to kill Dumbledore. And of course, Dumbledore is kind of the one thing that's keeping the world safe at the moment. And Draco's mother, Narcissa, played by Helen McRory, rest in peace, makes an unbreakable vow with Snape, in that Snape will carry out the deed if Draco fails. So then Draco's life will be safe. So she's just trying to protect her son, really. She doesn't really care about Snape and Dumbledore and all of that. But of course, we will discover the true intentions behind Dumbledore's death in the Deathly Hallows. But for now, yeah, we see that Snape has to take on the mantle of carrying out the deed of murdering Dumbledore. And I have to admit, the emotional scenes at the end are very well done. I think Dumbledore's death really hits hard, and it's very sad when everybody's pointing their wands in the air, and the music, Dumbledore's Farewell that's playing, is fantastic. It's a really sad piece of music, and it really works very well. And on the subject of Dumbledore, Michael Gambon gives his best performance as Dumbledore. I think he's really cemented himself in the series now, and I think his portrayal of the character has mellowed out quite a lot. A lot of people accused him of being a bit aggressive, but I actually think as time has gone on, his Dumbledore has really mellowed out, and he's a little bit warmer, a little bit more trustworthy in this one. And I think that some of the light relief at the beginning in the house with Slughorn, there's some nice comedy there. But his relationship with Harry is definitely nice, and it feels like he's kind of going back to how Richard Harris was in the first two films, where it's a slightly warmer, more approachable, grandfatherly character to Harry. So I appreciate that. There's that lovely scene on the tower when he says, "You need a shave," and I've forgotten, sometimes I still see the boy from the cupboard. That's a lovely, lovely little moment. Those moments are brilliant, and it shows how close Harry and Dumbledore have got over the years, which is brilliant. This is the least action-packed movie of the series. I think there's not as much action in the runtime as there could be. We have, you can count the action scenes on one hand. The opening sequence with the Millennium Bridge, it's not in the book, but I didn't mind it. It was quite an exciting opening, and it did kind of up the stakes of the story. We also have the Burrow action sequence, which is not in the book. It just comes out of bloody nowhere. Bellatrix just turns up and starts burning the Burrow down for no reason, and then she burns Hagrid's hut at the end. What's Bellatrix's obsession with burning things in this film? I've got no idea, but still, I guess the action sequence of the Burrow was for them to put the Frighteners on Harry, but I don't know. It makes no sense. And then, yeah, it's a very brief fight anyway. And then we also get the bathroom sequence with Harry and Draco. That's a good fight, although it doesn't last very long. A lot of the action in this film does not last particularly long, so they could have extended some of the action, I think, to help with the pace. And one of the best scenes of the series for me is when they go into the cave to look for the Horcrux. Well, or the fake Horcrux, but they obviously don't know that at the time. And there's a pretty traumatizing scene when Dumbledore is drinking that liquid from the sort of crystal bowl on that little crystal island place where they get the locket. That was pretty dark and pretty scary, and the Inferior are pretty freaky as well. And I absolutely love that moment when Dumbledore creates this massive ring of fire with his wand and saves Harry, and then they escape the cave. That's a pretty epic sequence. Although the film's climax, it could have had more of an action-packed climax. In the book, it's written as a mini battle that takes place within Hogwarts, which is obviously a tease for the Battle of Hogwarts, which comes in the Deathly Hallows. In the film, they totally changed that. They have Harry chase the Death Eaters and Snape out of the school. And then they burn Hagrid's hut down for no reason. And Harry doesn't really fight Snape all that much. He tries to cast a few spells, and then Snape just dodges it and knocks him down and reveals himself as the Half-Blood Prince. So, yeah, it did kind of feel like, oh, we could have had a bit more action in the climax. But luckily, the emotional climax is very strong, so it does kind of make up for it. But it is still slightly disappointing, if I'm not going to lie. And the fact that Dumbledore didn't get his funeral in the film, I know it's been said many times before, but I have to be honest, that is just a real shame, because in the fourth movie Cedric Diggory died, and he was a character who was not featured as much in the series, and he got a massive memorial. But it would have been nice for McGonagall or Harry to just even say a speech or something about Dumbledore. It would have been so nice. But luckily the end of the film is very strong when Harry, Ron and Hermione, they all agree together to go looking for the Horcruxes, and the film ends on that lovely note where Harry has his friends and she says, "Oh, you need us, Harry," which is lovely, and I do like that ending. It shows how, if anything, it shows how strong their friendship is, and over the 6 movies so far, we've seen a real strength to these 3 characters and their friendships. And I think that that's excellent. I think the music of the film is good, although I don't think it's the best Harry Potter score. It could be the weakest score of the series, but it is still good, and it does still work for the film. It's pleasant to listen to, but it's just not as good as the others. Also, Quidditch is back. Yes, Quidditch is back in the film, but it's not the Quidditch you know. The Quidditch in this film is very gritty. It's very rough, and a lot of people get hurt a bit more than they did before. It's not shown that much. It's only shown for like one scene, but Ron gets to play Quidditch, which is nice. I mean, in the book, Ron plays Quidditch in the Order of the Phoenix, but in the Order of the Phoenix film, they did not include Quidditch, despite the fact that Harry says, "Oh, some of you who made the team last year may not make it this year." But yeah, in terms of the films, we didn't see Quidditch the previous year, so it doesn't really make sense, but whatever. But it was nice to see Quidditch back, but I can't deny the Quidditch match is probably not my favourite of the series. It probably is one of the weaker ones. I don't know. I preferred the Quidditch matches of the first 2 films. They were the most impressive. This one, while it was good, I thought it was a bit too rough. It didn't quite work for me. And like I said, the film, it is long and baggy. Like I said, I do like some of the romantic scenes, especially with Harry and Ginny when they go to hide the book, and she gets him to close his eyes, and she hides it, and then she kisses him, which is a really nice moment. That's very tender and very sweet. I mean, that's the shame that Ginny's kind of underdeveloped in the films, but at least in this one, she gets a little bit more to do. But even then, it's not a huge amount. But still, it was nice for her to get a little bit more. I have to say, though, the look of this film is kind of all over the place. I don't particularly like the cinematography of this film. It's okay in some scenes, but other scenes it has this kind of olive green look, and some of the shots are way too dark, to the point where you can't really see anything. I think they should have turned the contrast down a little bit in the editing. David Yates has this kind of obsession with dark shots. I don't know why, but I mean, the film looks okay. It looks all right enough, but I do think that some of the shots are very hard to see, and yeah, it does look very bleak. It's the most bleak looking of the films thus far. And there is that funny moment as well where McGonagall says, "Why is it when something happens, it's always you 3?" And then Ron says, "Oh, believe me, Professor, I've been asking myself the same question for 6 years." That was quite funny. So overall, the Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, it is a good film. It is a decent entry into this series, but for me, it is definitely the weakest of the 8 films. It does drag on significantly quite a lot. It is very slow. I mean, then again, the book I found was quite slow. So it wasn't one of my favourite books of the series, but the film definitely could have focused more on the right things, and then it would have been pretty solid. But sadly, it does feel like a little bit of a step down in quality. But it is not without entertainment, so I will give this movie a 7 out of 10. I think that's about as high as I can give it, I'm afraid. But anyway, thank you very much all for watching this review, and stay tuned next time when I review Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Yes, the first half of the finale of this original series, which is going to be great. And then once I've finished Harry Potter, I will revisit the first 2 Fantastic Beasts movies before I see the new film. So anyway, what do you think of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince? Please comment down below. Let me know. And stay tuned next time when I review The Deathly Hallows Part 1. So until then, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. Thank you for watching. Mischief managed.